Skittlebite here. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made my latest Bluebird box, Eastern Bluebird box. Let me show you how it works. Well, I haven't put it together yet. Let me show you on the finished product how it works. So this new house is more of a traditional designed Bluebird house, unlike the Frank Lloyd Wright style house that I did in my Making a Good House video from many years ago, which I may show you here in a minute how well it's held up. Some key things to note: I suggest using the cedar. It holds up well. It looks good if you're not going to paint it. It has the surface, so it looks good. And insects and stuff don't like cedar. I use a 1.5 inch hole, entrance hole, and I do an extension on it. This is so that only the smaller birds can get in there. Also, the extension keeps predators such as squirrels and other climbing animals, cats, from being able to reach in there and getting a hold of the bird. It has vents on both sides, so you get a cross flow for air, keep it cooler. Slanted roof so the rain runs off. If you're going to paint yours, so if you're going to use a wood that is not cedar, then I do suggest you paint the outside of it so that it lasts longer. Your choice. If you don't care how long it lasts, that's fine. If you're going to use cedar and you want to paint it, turn the wood so that the flat surface is out. The birds won't care if the rougher surface is inside. Now this one opens from the side, and I did that so that I could put a trap here. When they come in, it'll trap, and I can get access. For the floor on this one, I went 5.5 inches square again. 4 inch square is the minimum, but if you have a clutch of 4 inches really isn't enough. And this is Eastern Bluebirds, so they're the smaller one. So let's talk about mounting. The best way to mount your birdhouse, your Bluebird house, is on a metal pole. The next best is a wooden post. And then only if you don't have those options should you put it on like the side of a tree. I've had Bluebird clutches in all 3 of those that have had no issues. I've had some that have had issues with all 3. If you have it mounted on a pole or a post, you can use a predator guard, and that is just something, whether it's metal or plastic, like some people use plastic buckets and stuff, and they'll put a hole in it big enough around to fit over the post or the pole, and they'll have it hanging with the opening down so that when something tries to climb, they go inside the bucket or the metal piece, and it makes it a lot more difficult to get to the birds, to the house. You can also grease it. You can take some grease, just regular grease, put on the post or the pole, and that dissuades them from trying to climb. So generally, the Bluebirds prefer the house to face east to north. And I think this is a heat related thing, but they prefer east to north. You can have it facing other directions, but that's what they prefer from my experience and based upon my research. The house should be mounted, I recommend, generally speaking, about 5.5 feet, 6 feet, something that you can look in. So for me, I would have this one, up here, around your head height, depending on how tall you are. That seems to be the most convenient for you to look in, and you'll want to look in them and check them on occasion. If you have not seen my video on caring for bluebirds, I do ask that if you would please view that video. It is years old, but it will explain a lot of what it takes to actually have successful Bluebird clutches. Here is the house that I made in that Making a Good Bluebird House video. It's holding up pretty well. Yep, it's on a wooden post. I have a dog that helps keep predators away also, but it's had many clutches of Bluebird successfully. And I will mention, I've tried things like you'll see this, and up here I've tried the different wires, the fishing line and all that, and house sparrows don't really seem to be affected. At least in my case they weren't. And yeah, those are air rifle holes. If you prefer this house, it's the video called Making a Good Bluebird House. So this is what I used to make the house. I used a cedar board that's 6 foot by 7 1/4 by 3/4 inch. The roof you will have to glue. It's too wide. It's 10 by 9 1/2. Floor is 5 1/2 by 5 1/2. That is so you can have 5 eggs, more importantly 5 chicks in the house, and they won't push one out. If you have it 4 inches, on mine 4 inches isn't big enough. You'll end up with four birds because there's not enough space. Hole extension. Front, you can read, right? I mean, you are watching a video. I hope hopefully. No perch. Bluebirds do not use perches. If you have a perch on here, another bird is going to sit on that perch, and they're going to attack the bluebirds from the outside or keep the bluebirds from coming out. No perches on Bluebird houses. So a couple things to mention on the cuts. The front board and the rear board, the back board, I cut at a 9-degree angle, with the front of the house being lower than the back. And I did the same thing on the front and back of the roof. Hopefully you can see that in the frame. That way you don't have to. You can absolutely cut them 90 degrees flat. It'll still work. For your holes, we're going to start with the back board. The floor is roughly, the top of the floor, I should say, is roughly 9 1/2 inches from the top. So I have marked it. The left wall is the top of it, back corner, is roughly 1/2 inch. You want a 1/2 inch air gap on both sides that allows the air to go across, and that pulls out some of the heat. So you want about a 1/2 inch. What I've done is I've marked where the bottom of the board goes, right here. It's easier for me. Now I am taking this on the side and I'm making a mark about there and about there. Those are where I want to put the screws. You can use nails if you want to use nails. I'm using screws, and I want them about halfway through this board. Could have a better pencil here, like so. This is where we're going to pre-drill. Your drill bit needs to be smaller. I'm using screws, 1 1/2 inch screws. Drill bit needs to be smaller than the screw, or the nail if you're using a nail. I got a couple nails. The small one I know will go through the hole. Barely, but I only need it to go barely. I'm going to line the board up at the bottom where it's supposed to be lined. Now I'm going to push down on that screw, on that nail, and I got a little tiny spot there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Line it up where it's supposed to be. Now I push down on the nail while pulling up on the board. There's my other screw. That tells me where to pre-drill on this board. Be careful doing this that you don't actually do what I'm doing and risk screwing into your hand. That was not best practices. Now we got the one for the back done, the pre-drilling, and those holes should line up. Now we want to do the same thing for the front board, and it should already be lined up if you cut them correctly, so that the bottom lines up at the bottom, and the front, the top I should say, is about 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to mark where I want to drill, and it's again just find the spot that is towards the bottom, find a spot that is towards the top. You're going to have 2 in there. Now we're going to do the same trick with the nail. There and there. You remember where it was? That was probably a little deeper than I had to go, but it might have hurt anything. Okay, that's how you do your pre-drilling, and you only need to do it on the left side when looking at it from the front. Next, we will actually put the screws in. I'm using 1.5 inch long deck screws. They need to be outdoor screws so that they're not going to rust, at least too quick. These happen to be T20s. Not my first choice, but that's what I had. Use a regular screwdriver or drill driver. Start them into this is the back piece. You want to start them till they're just through. Then you're going to take the left side, try to do it where you can see it. And you want it slightly through so you can match the ends of the screws or nails into those holes that you pre-drilled. So, I don't over tighten them at first, or hopefully ever, but I don't over tighten them at all, for sure, at the start. Front, we're going to do the same thing. Sliver. Ooh, yeah. You're going to get slivers. I am using a piece of junk wood. In case you're wondering, no, this wasn't for a porta potty. There's that hole there. No, that was actually a roof vent. That's why the hole was in it. Just slightly past. It's going to help us line it up. And they just line right up. And you're done. Well, at least with the front. No? Okay, at least with, well, no, you're not done at all, sorry. The right side, as you know, as we've seen, doesn't get screwed permanently in. It's going to have pivots down here. I'm just putting it in here to hold as a, just to square it. Next, we're going to do the floor, and I marked front, top. And yes, I have the wood on the top. I have this on the bottom. It doesn't matter. There's going to be a nest on top of it, so it makes no difference which way you go. I do have holes drilled. I believe these were 3/16 holes that I drilled in, and I cut the corners. This is so that water can run out. Any water that gets in there needs to be able to run out, or it's bad for the babies. Now, I have already pre-drilled the holes here and here, here and here, and on the two here on the front, two here on the back, two here on the sides. It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to worry, and let me just take this out. You don't have to worry too much about exactly where, and I've pre-drilled. You don't have to worry too much about exactly where. The front ones I did towards the right side. The back ones are also towards the right side, and I only did that because the left side ones are going to be in left side. The right side isn't going to have them. So that's why I have them a little off of center. So just like the other boards that we've done, we've pre-drilled. We screw these in. Enough to line them up, and really, it might be best to do these first. Now that I think about it, I don't think it matters too much, but it's going to be harder to line up this side, I believe. Sorry you can't see this, but I am putting it in just enough. Yep. Just enough so the point's sticking out, just like I did before. In fact, we're going to go with all 6. We're going to do that with all 6. Because the right side isn't going to be there. And that's going to allow us some flexibility. Just barely have them poking through. Don't have your finger under here when you actually turn them. Might hurt. So here, now we're going to try to line up the bottom. With all 6 of these at the same time. This is a bit of a challenge. I drew the lines here, and I should point out, so I already told you on the back, so it's roughly 8 inches from the front of the left side down to the top of the board. From the front, it's the 8.5, that's the one I told you. And on the back, it's 9.5. So there's roughly a 1 inch difference between the front and back at the top. Okay, I think we got it. Should be pretty close. Left side, I'm starting with the left side. So that pulls it in tight. Now you can do the front or back, it makes no difference. Make sure the floor is lined up where it's supposed to be. Floor is in. Right side is going to go here, but the right side in this one, as we saw, is going to pivot. So what we have to do, and I need to drill my pre-drill holes. So I made a minor mistake. I forgot that these need to be slightly, the sides, just slightly indent them, like a 1/16 of an inch. So have them slightly indented. See how this one is? That's how I needed it on the other side. It's not going to hurt anything. Birds aren't going to notice. And humans aren't either, because they're not going to see both sides at the same time. However, indent the sides just about a 1/16 of an inch. This hole should be a 1/2 inch from the bottom, and you want to drill it. I set this here and I just drilled straight down through. And since I had moved this, I went ahead and did the same thing with the screw. I'm going to line it up. There. Line up the pre-drilled hole. I'm going to use that to help locate the other side. Because this one I don't have the 1/2 inch to measure. Now it is 2 inches from the back board, the floor, the back, not the floor. 2 inches to the bottom of the boards, the other sides and the front from the back. This is 2 inches longer on the back, and that's so we can put a screw through here or use a pipe clamp for a metal pipe. So you want 2.5 inches up on the backboard. It'll be slightly more than a 1/2 inch because of that 8 inch, if you remember, of space. And it it needs to line up with the other side because this is going to pivot. Try to make sure it's vertical. Okay. Right side is in. You'll notice it's split. That's disappointing. It's not going to hurt anything long term. I'll take some wood glue and put in here. What I should have did on this one for sure, because I screwed that in past the shank. It's into the, I'll show you. It's right here. And this starts splitting. I should have taken a chamfer, is that what it's called? Bit, and widened the top here so that when it went in, it didn't do that. That's disappointing, but it can be worked around. You can see, in fact, hopefully you can see this. See how it widened it around there? But this should open like so. Allow you to clear the nest. And this, I'll show you the floor. See how it's a little bit wide here? A little bit of a gap. That's because I forgot to move this side in a little. And you can see that 1/2 inch is barely enough. If this had not split, it would have been a little better, but that's how it'll work. Now we need to put in, we're going to pre-drill a hole up here, and this is going to be the pin that you will remove when you need to open it, and you'll leave it in when it's being used. It's going to go like that. It's going to hold that board. In fact, I may use this one. It's going to hold the board closed, and it's at an angle so it's not going to fall out. I should mention this. Don't make sure that the nail is going to stick out just a little bit so you can get a hold of it. So when you're drilling your pre-drill, hole, leave it stuck out. Leave it stuck out about 1 inch. There. So now that won't open. And when weather starts hitting this, it'll tighten that hole up. Front, back, and sides are done. And I got another, ooh, that one hurt. Got another sliver. So what's next? All right, I should have done this one already. This is the hole extension. Again, you have to use a hole extension. There's a couple ways. I drilled this separately. So this is a 1.5 inch hole saw. And drilled this, and I drilled this separately. You can already put this on and then drill them, whatever. Just make sure they line up. Also, you can glue this. So put some glue around here, and then use a clamp. Clamp it, hold it down, and dry. You can put the clamp through there if you have the roof on. And since I'm leaning towards just gluing it, so I think it looks cleaner, I think that's what I'll do. We can move on to the roof. As I said earlier, the roof, you have to glue 2 pieces. It's fairly flat. Just use the flat edge, not the cut edge. Use the flat edge. Unless you got a planer or something, then you can nicen it up. I glued it here, and I took a couple clamps and held them together. I then cleaned it up front and back, and it's got that 9-degree. And I removed excess. You see how there's some excess here? I don't care about it on the inside, just where it's going to hit the other boards, and on the top. I cleaned them up a little bit. You will not see this when it's had some weathering. You can have this set back a little bit. However, that might interfere with the way you want to mount it. Or you can make it like so, so that it's lined up. And again, that angle, just, I only did that because it looks better. So I should have checked my notes better. One thing I had forgotten to do was to make the ladder. On the front inside board, you need to cut grooves under the hole so that the bluebirds can put their feet, their little nails, into those holes, into those slits. That helps them defend the house, because this here, that's too slick. They can't really hold on to that at all. This gives them a place to grab hold and defend their nest box from attacking anything that, other birds that might be trying to come in. How I did it was using a Dremel. And then it's like so. There's several, whatever works, what works well, and what I would have used, if you have a chop saw or a miter saw or something with a fairly thin enough blade, you can just bring it down several times to create that ladder. One of the reasons that I build this house like it is, besides the dimensions and everything being good for the birds, is the trap. Let me show you before I put the top on the roof. You can make one of these traps. Here's, so really? I'm going to do this every time, aren't I? Okay. They sit like this. You line them up with the hole. Bird comes in, hits that, which drops that. This screw catches it. They're now blocked. Like so, they can't get out. You pull this, put the bag over it, and then you pull this down. The bird is going to come and fly out into the bag, and then you can do whatever you want with your bird. So if you're mounting it on a steel post, you'll use pipe clamps, and they'll just screw in the back. No big deal, and the pipe will be here. Figure out your roof height. If you're mounting it on a wood post, this is 2 inches down for a reason. I've drilled a hole here. It's where a screw would go in, or nail if you needed to use one, but I prefer like a 3-inch deck screw to screw into the post. And now we're going to drill the second one. And you can have these holes and not use them. It's not going to hurt the birds. So lining up from the front, if I center this, more or less. Yes, that was kind of silly. I can do this. 7.5 is the middle. Right there, 7.5. I'll eyeball it about 7.5. That hole neatly lines up with that hole. So now you can take your screwdriver, whatever, reach through here. If you don't have a stubby, you can reach a longer one through here, put it through that hole, and then into the post. Oh! See that? Another sliver. Cedar. Whew. So what I have done is I have marked the back. I measured across here 10 inches. That's 5 inches. 7.25 is 3.5 plus 1/8. That's that mark. I'm going to have the back just slightly over the edge so that rain will be more likely to come down as opposed to in. If you did a flat board, what you can do is take in the gap, take some silicone or something and fill it in so that the water won't run in. And I want to make sure I got this fairly straight. Change drill bits. I'll be right back. So let's pretend I had the right drill bit in to start with, and you never saw that. I'm going to use 2 screws on the back here. That would be right where I would put it. Obviously, you don't want to drill into that. So I'm going to put it just right there. And remember, the roof is angled, so you want to line this up with that back board. In fact, let me dig in. I used the chuck of the drill, something I wouldn't normally do, into the wood a little bit. Double checking. And if there are knots in the wood, you'll want to avoid them. There's a little off center there, but it's not going to hurt. And do the same trick that we did before. Start the screws. That's a little more than I would have normally done, but it's okay. I'm not drilling into a good bench. Line the screws up. If you have to back the screws out because we went too far, that's fine, back them out. Got to do 2 more here on the front. As you can tell, that one's going to be a little more tricky. What you want to do is measure 2.5. Mark 2.5. I marked it 2.5. Kind of eyeball it to see if it's pretty close. Mine is close. But here's the thing, I almost forgot. that's to the front of the board. So I actually want to drill it about a 1/2 inch farther back. And again, eyeball the front, not the roof, because the roof is angled. Think you got it? Okay, you think the screws are sticking out of the board anywhere? Yeah, that one's sticking out the front. Well, that kind of sucks. We are going to remove it because it pushed the front board back. We have to move it. Small drill bit, like so, and then close it. What that's going to do is force this board forward. Okay, that's going to clear that up a little bit. I'm going to have to do a new hole. I'm thinking about right there. This couldn't happen in the back where no one will see it. Alright, did we get it this time? I should look. I think so, hope so. We'll find out. It's better if it goes in on the inside, because up here it's not like it's going to affect anybody, the birds. Okay, there we go. Now, let's open it. Move the bit and see, now this will move again. And it's not sticking out on the inside or the outside. That was unfortunate, but it happens. You're not going to notice this one. I'm going to fill this in either with wood glue. I may just use wood glue, or I'm going to cut this screw off just enough so that it'll go in and it'll fill that hole. It'll look like there's a screw going all the way. Wood glue. You can put this whatever direction you want. In fact, I want it opposite. I'm going to go opposite. Yep, I'm a rebel. Line up the hole. There. This is farther in than most of my clamps will go, so I had to get a big welding clamp. So do this before you go to put it all together. Clearly it'd be a lot easier on that corner. Okay, good, good, good. And I'm just going to fill this one in with wood glue. That way water won't go in it. So thanks for watching. Hope it was helpful. If you got any comments, questions, please leave them in the comments section. Please like and subscribe if you would. And good luck making your Bluebird house. May you have many successful clutches. And I lost my nail that I used to hold it shut. Yeah. And man, I found it, because it's still shiny.